So today I'm going to review Etheria Restart. I know, it's a bit late to be reviewing this game, seeing everyone else on YouTube already make review of them. To be frank, I kinda held back because there were many other games I was more eager to play last month. So about Etheria Restart. The reason I'm making this review is because how surprisingly bad my experience of this game. Of course, I know it's not fair to blandly dislike a game as if it has no good feature, and there will be some of my word you found bias. Still, this is my honest impression of the game. Some of you might enjoy it and still play it by now. So if you like Etheria Restart, this video isn't for you. So let's start. I knew about this game way back before its release, but at the time, I wasn't quite interested, so I never invested a lot in knowing Etheria Restart. There were so many gacha game announcements here and there, and I didn't see what made this game interesting at that time. But just a week or two before its launch, Etheria Restart generated a fair amount of hype. I saw content creators and Reddit posts glorifying its gacha system, claiming it was more generous than other games. They'd point out that a single pull cost 100 hydrocrystals for anima prototypes instead of the more common 160 or 150, and it also offered a guaranteed SSR after 80 pulls. They also highlight that its lack of a 50/50th system for featured banners, which is a common point of frustration in other gacha titles. Another major highlight was its supposed PvP focus, with challenging strategy and tournaments. Initially, I was intrigued, but also quite doubtful. From my experience, gacha games that heavily market their generous rewards or free pulls often turn out to be low to mid-quality titles. These are typically games made with minimal effort with barely animated live 2D images, little to no voiceover, bland stories, and basic turn-based mechanic use by many gacha games at this point. Their advertisements usually focus on their generous login bonuses and reward rather than the game itself. And so at launch and I play Etheria Restart, and my initial impression is not quite good. At first, seeing the loading screens and the 3D animations, I still have this hope that the game turn out to be decent. But after the prologue story and tutorial, my impression is getting worse. Perhaps it was too soon to judge. Gacha games usually focus on one of three main pillars: gameplay, story, or characters. If the story was already falling flat, maybe other elements would shine. So I committed to playing for at least 2 weeks, and here's the conclusion of my own opinion on it. Starting with stories, to put it mildly, it was bad. While the developers clearly tried to compensate with cinematic cutscenes, which are at least good enough, they ultimately couldn't mask the shallow narrative. The story is certainly not the game's primary strength. The fact that they didn't even bother to draw faces for NPCs further suggests a lack of effort in narrative. Next, the characters. It feels like the developers prioritize quantity over quality, releasing a significant number of characters at launch. Personally, without a compelling story to give them context or deep personality, most characters feel like cardboard. While few designs might look good, they weren't captivating enough to make me want to collect them as waifus, or husbando, depending on your interest. Many of them felt plain to me who already get used to Azur Lane, Blue Archive, Hoyoverse, and Wuwa Standard. I can see the lack of effort they put into it, especially with the AI controversy. I don't care much about their issue of using AI, but the fact they even accused of using AI, no matter if it's true or not, it shows how bad they are at polishing their work or make it up to public standard. Now for the gameplay, for me it wasn't as flashy or strategic as some people claimed it to be. It basically is any basic turn-based gacha system. After playing numerous other turn-based RPGs, including HSR, Etheria Restart's combat felt less impressive and quite boring. Sure, it has strategic potential, and some bosses are quite challenging, and PvP real-time is quite hard. I can see what people see in this game combat. However, this potential is often undermined by a forced meta. Many endgame modes or levels necessitate specific characters to complete. For instance, units like Senya, Lily, or Klaus have become somewhat mandatory to have, so you can complete some high-level endgame content. Adding to the mess, the developers seem to think that shadow nerfs are a good idea, including unannounced changes and update to mechanics. A prime example is a hot fix that suddenly made damage over time or guillotines unplayable against the Aurora. This change was neither present in the beta nor mentioned in the patch notes, and was later disingenuously labeled a bug by the developers. This effectively nerfed an entire archetype and invalidated player investment without warning. Then there's the gacha system. While not many seem to think much of it, I think it was a major red flag. Yes, a poll costs 100 Hydra crystals instead of 160, and there are plenty of initial rewards. But then you hit the constant and disorder banners, which cost 3 times more currency to pull on their dedicated banners or have lower rarity on normal banners. This felt absurd to me. They're essentially charging more because the characters belong to a different element, something I've never experienced before in other gacha games, at least the ones I played before. I looked up the reason, as many point out, that constant and disorder characters are much rarer compared to other elements, and basically most of them are meta, with quite high position on the tier list. So what part of that is generous? Isn't that just another way of saying constant and disorder characters are the true SSRs, and the others are just filler? In that case, there's nothing generous about it. The fact that majority of them are meta and important for endgame PvE or even PvP show my point of how outrageous the gacha are. Their scarcity alone already lowers their drop rate. Creating separate and more expensive banners just emphasizes their exclusivity was too much. That if we not include duplicates, as many people experience, imprint do make unit more broken. Finally, let's talk about PvP, which was supposed to be the main focus of this game. Surely, it's better, right? While it can be challenging at first, what I saw was a disaster in the making. Most gacha games don't truly focus on PvP for 2 simple reasons. It's incredibly difficult to balance with a constantly expanding roster of characters, and the gacha mechanics inherently make everything unfair for free-to-play players. While some gacha games have PvP, it rarely becomes the central pillar. In Etheria Restart, the PvP ultimately feels less about strategic skill and more about luck and how much money you've spent. With the labor-intensive grinding, the developers' habit of making unannounced nerfs and buffs behind players' backs, and the inevitable addition of more characters in the future, this game's PvP future will not be great. I don't think Etheria Restart is completely unsavable. As long as you have good community management and clear direction on what you should improve, they can make a comeback. Hua is best example of this. Unfortunately, until now, you don't see it. I may not be expert or professional in game industry, but I can tell how messy this project is. From dense UI, bad character balancing, shadow nerf, questionable unannounced hot fix, whale-centered event, even AI art controversy. All this problem come in their first month on live server. In my eyes, it was as if the whole project lead by corporate greed. That lead team consists of people who has no experience in game, or they stopped caring on making game look proper. The project seems so hasty and quite shady with how much bad it tried to make players spend money on it. To be fair, all gacha games do try to make players spend money, but usually they try to make player want to spend money on the game. Etheria Restart, on the other hand, try to make situation as hard as possible for players, so they can think spending money has a solution. I'm not Etheria Restart target market, or in this case, gacha gamers in general. While most gacha gamers is gambling addict, we are not pull character because we addict to gambling. We just not collecting character models. Some took interest in character personalities, stories, and look, so they grinding and spend money for the character they want. Some come for gameplay, they came to try new strategy and beat up all activity, including endgame mode, that why new character with new abilities exciting for us. Some came because they too invested in stories. They mostly came to enjoy main stories and event stories. Etheria Restart doesn't seem care of this aspect, while true PvP is also part of gameplay appeal, and it does have quite a lot PvE mode. It will not work if you try to change balance in game every so often, especially when you make change without telling players. When you try to change meta by force, player hard work and sense of achievement will also crumble. That's why many dev prefer buffing unit instead nerfing them, so player will not feel punished. This is only my opinion on Etheria Restart. If you found something amazing about this game that makes you stay, then good for you, and I hope you have a good time. Feel free to comment if you have a different opinion of Etheria Restart.